A student asked me a question this week. She wanted to know if it was true, something she had heard. She had been told that to be a writer, you don't write just when you're inspired, you do it every day. And it's the same thing for storytellers. And I said, yeah, I think that's absolutely true for a couple of reasons. One, inspiration is great and all, but also kind of like emotions, inconsistent, not always trustworthy. You might be inspired to do something and find out you've been led down the wrong road by your ambition. Another thing, which I think might be even more important, is that writing doesn't always look the same way. I mean, writing can be me at my desk with pen and paper, just jotting down some words, but it can also be me on a treadmill and just letting my imagination go nuts, which often happens because I guess I'm releasing hormones and my brain is just super excited. Sometimes it's me on the bus, just texting myself some ideas. Sometimes writing is me reading. My mom once told me never read without a pen or pencil in hand or nearby. And because of that advice, I've left a lot of interesting notes and a lot of margins in a lot of books. But yeah, inspiration is great, but I don't think it's enough. I think what's really good about discipline is that while inspiration may be here today and gone tomorrow, the fear will always be here, day in, day out. That's why Hemingway said a blank page is the scariest thing in the world, because it's the unknown. You don't know what you're going to do with this opportunity, and not even a matter of whether it's going to be good or bad. You just don't know, and that not knowing is discomforting. And because of that, that's why you do it day in, day out, to get familiar with that fear, which will always still be fear, but at least it can be something you know, something you can recognize. It's interesting. This author, Charles Bukowski, he didn't make it until he was about 50, and he started writing when he was 20. And so he went for a couple of years, and then he stopped because things weren't working out. And so from early to mid 20s into his 30s, not a word. He was just working at the post office. But then he almost died. And when that happened, he realized, I got to try again. This is who I am. So he writes while at the post office, gets a couple of things published, quits his day job, but then has to go back to it because it wasn't really that big of a deal, the couple of things he got published. Keeps writing to his 40s. Small publications, nothing too prominent. Keeps writing at 50. The publisher says, here's a check, keep doing what you do. Now Charles Bukowski has made it. Interestingly enough, though, on his tombstone, he has two words: don't try. And you would think for a man who had been writing from his 20s into his 50s that he's a person who believes in trying. But his point was, and he explained this in a letter to a friend, he wasn't trying to be a storyteller or a writer. He was driven mad by it. He was just mad with the desire burning inside, and he just had to do it. Didn't know why, but that's just the way it was. So he wasn't trying when he got up every day and wrote. He was just being who he was. I think that's interesting too because James Baldwin has this quote where he says, every time somebody steps up to the world to tell a story, to write something, they are endeavoring to change the world. And I believe that, but I don't really understand it. Like, I don't know what any story I've ever told has to do with the turmoil in Afghanistan, for example. How am I changing the world? Because that's something I would definitely try to change in this instant. I don't know how. But stories are that kind of magic. And maybe they're magical because they really are just a constant collision with fear. And you got to come away with that different, right? Like every day you're just confronting your fear. Every day you're going to look at the world different and you're going to be in the world something different. And maybe by that, just that act of confronting your fear every day, you change the world. I don't know. Anyway, I want to shout out my boss. She's very nice, but she also might be shy, so I won't say her name. But she actually bought me a microphone for Women in Storage. I think because I just love it. And sometimes she watches the stories, and so she surprised me with this gift. And so I'm hoping I'm sounding clearer and crisper and very pleasant, especially since I can't do the subtitles for these longer videos, because typically I'm just punching them in my hand, and I don't have the bandwidth for that. So that's all I got. I hope you're doing great, and I'll talk to you soon. Deuces.